Hey y'all, I am Lady Rae Taylor, the creator of A Poet Scene, and today we are going to learn a little more about an artist named Ezra. Let's go. So how is your life today?
How was my life today? It was a good day. Life was pretty good today. I actually had a good day at work. Um, a very energetic, busy, all over the place day, but it came together at the end. So it all came together for the good. So it worked out. Pretty cool day.
That's what's up. That's what's up. At least it came together in the end, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I did too. I had a pretty productive day. So got out, met a few people, and so got a chance to enjoy some of this fun a little bit.
Right on, right on. Good
Yeah.
to see you.
Good to see you too. It's been a
Yeah,
minute.
it has been. It has been.
Yeah, congratulations on you just won some money for the poetry slam, right?
Yeah, my landlord won some money.
Okay.
I won some money. Yeah. I won some money at the $1,000 poetry slam competition. Young Brothers Bar. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Okay. I didn't even know anything about it. I just so happened to be scrolling and I seen that and I'm like, oh, okay. I ain't even.
Yeah. I was actually supposed to be a judge initially, but they had somebody drop out. And so I jumped in like really the last minute.
Yeah. How many of those have you won?
Slams?
Yes. Many.
A lot.
Many.
I really have lost count. If I this does I don't want to sound like I'm like trying to flex or anything, but I really was just thinking today that I needed to start trying to find a way. Like I've never sat down and just looked at everything that I've done. Like just sat down, which I think maybe a lot of artists haven't done sometimes, especially like during this type of time where some of our work has slowed down or, we're not being as creative. We might kind of forget like all the stuff that we have done, and created up until this moment. So slams, I really was trying to remember even like all the slams I have won, but I've been slamming since 2000. So I've been slamming since 2000. I think the first slam that I won was at the Shadow Lounge in 2003. And that was like my first poetry slam, and that was for the National Poetry Slam competition. There was an organization called Sun Crumbs that was here that used to help create qualifying teams to go compete in the National Poetry Slams here. And they used to hold their slams at the Shadow Lounge. And I competed one year, and it just seemed like that was my year. Like it just everything kind of went well for me at the slams that year. And then I made it onto the team, and we it was like a team of 4 of us, and we went out and competed in Chicago, Illinois.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, but since then, maybe I'm gonna say 20 plus, maybe like 20 plus slams that I'm aware of.
Many slams. How do you prepare for that?
I prepared. I usually don't even describe my process when people ask me, it's kind of like I be wanting it to be like my little secret weapon. I'll be preparing. But I go hard. I go in, I treat it like I'm about to go to concert. Like I'm about to perform in a concert. But that's always been me. Like ever since I've been like a little kid, I was one of the little kids who was a Michael Jackson kid. I was a Prince kid, but hardcore though. Like not like like I'll be in my room for hours, like imagining like if I was putting the concert together and how the concert would go and all. I would play the whole bandmates. I would play all the bandmates. I play all the singers. I play the dancers. I had a sister. My sister, my oldest sister Aisha. We would put together a whole concerts in our minds and then play them out in our room. We shared a room, and I'd be on one bed and she'd be on her bed rack. The whole scenario, like getting ready at the house, what clothes we're gonna put on, phone calls to the other bandmates. Then we would jump in our cars. Then we're acting like we're riding to the concert. What's
Oh,
going on in
wow.
the car? Then we jump out the car. Then we signing autographs. Then we going. We would do rehearsal. And then like at rehearsal, we do sound check. Like we were already doing this like 6, 7, 8 years old. Like this already doing this. And then we would do the whole album. So we put the album on. So it was like Purple Rain album or the Thriller album or Off the Wall or those things. We put those on and we would do the whole album, like both sides, like the whole songs, like sweating when we're done. So like I got the broom and so I got like broom pieces all over the room. I'm acting like it's a car, you know. And so I still do that now. So if I'm out to have a slam, I'm going in my basement and I'm just going to perform it in maybe like 4 or 5 different ways. Like I'm gonna try it fast. I'm gonna try it slow. I'm gonna chop it up. I'm gonna rap it. I'm gonna sing it. I'm gonna do all types of things with it, and then just be like, all right, like when I get to the space, and then I'm fill out the space, and then I know which vibe to use that I've already practiced, that I already kind of went in, and and then, but I practice for hours. I mean, not even like weeks before. It's almost the same way that I treat theater productions. I'm also an actor. So same way. As soon as I get a role or when I want a role, I'm already practicing like all day on the bus, waking up, during my breaks at work, when I'm teaching with the children, they don't know I'm practicing, you know, like I'm just finding ways to practice like all day till it's time for the sound. Now I listen to a lot of music that I feel also fits like the different energies or the vibe that I want to bring that night. So I'm going to be tapping into that. And then I'll also watch like a lot of performances. You know, I'll watch comedians. I'll watch like how comedians connect with like large crowds of people. You know, I watch great orators and lecturers, like great speakers, nice people. I'll watch them the same day. You know, I'll watch some poets. You know, I'll just jump and watch some spoken word artists, watch some poets, different people reciting their works. So I also do that throughout the day and just pump myself up. You know, just like pump myself up, drink some water, get myself kind of ready, and I feel everything. You know, I'm nervous, I'm excited, I'm scared.
You can't tell. You cannot tell. So when I seen you, I can't remember the very first time that I've seen you perform. I don't remember if it was the Shadow Lounge or what is the other one? I can't even think where it is. It's also off of Howland Avenue, but it's on that side street by Family Dollar. What was that one called?
So it was it was Capri. We was having slams over at Capri.
Not Capri, the one behind Capri, back like where that Family Dollar is.
Oh, I think it was called something World, something New World.
Renewal World or something. Renewal World, something like that. Yeah.
Right, okay.
I know I seen you there. And of course, we started doing things in the same vicinity. But when you have that one piece, this is what stands out. And you are one to study. So when I definitely have to work on my stage presence, I'm nervous, and I think it shows. It never shows when you are up there to me, but you have the piece that you do when you go within. Go within, go without, and then you repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. And when you did that, when I first seen that, I was like, oh, this is different for me. Like I need to step it up a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Because you are one to study.
I mean, yeah, definitely, you know, and I was first introduced to spoken word, like specifically spoken word, in 1994. I was at the old Kingsley Center location. They used to be in the East Lib. That's the real Kingsley.
That. Yeah.
That's the real Kingsley. All right. And in 94, I was rapping. I started off rapping. I was part of a duo that was called Mob Life G's. All right. And G stood for Gods, GODS. It was a whole acronym. It stood for Men of Brotherly Love and Fearless Existence, Gradually Overcoming Daily Strife. Mob, life, gods. But the name first was because my partner had this obsession with the mob look or mafia look for some reason, and to him, like, he liked that look. So at first, like, we kind of started trying to roll like we was like a little mob with each other, but we were a different type of mob because we was into studying knowledge and we was into studying all types of things, but we were living in hood elements. We're living on Mayflower Street in Larmer. We was also kind of influenced by that. So it was kind of like a mixture of that. And I was just starting to get on stage and rap and do stuff around that time at the Kingsley Center. The Kingsley Center, through Steve Chapman and Don Patterson, who both passed away last year, rest in peace, due to COVID. Those was like my first two mentors. Like they gave us in the back of the Kingsley Center, they had a little studio spot, right? Just an empty room that they put some studio equipment, not even like the greatest stuff. I mean, this was like 94. And he had like some makeshift beat making things back there. They showed us like the basics of how to do things. And then they just charged us about $5 an hour. And we can go in there and teach ourselves how to learn these instruments and create our own demos and then create our own talent shows. And that's what we were doing, which became also kind of like a safe place, a safe haven for some of us. It was 93, 94.
Yeah.
You know, it was a lot of gang stuff going on.
Yeah.
And I was impacted by a whole lot because I had lived in Homewood a large part of my life when I was younger. Then we ended up in Larmer. And when we first moved there wasn't any really a neighborhood rivalry. But then a few years later, there was. And I'm going to West Downs High School now as well. And now I'm not from Homewood, now I'm from Larmer. So now I'm going to school in Homewood, and I will run into a whole bunch of issues and situations just to go to school in the neighborhood I grew up in for some years. So like this place was like a safe haven for some of us. Like, and East Liberty was kind of that was kind of like a safe place, like, because no gang was claiming East Liberty,
right?
So you can say I'm from Larner, but if somebody asked me where I was from, I was able to be like, I'm from East Lib, and that kind of say
neutral,
right. Sometimes, but the Kingsley Center was also a neutral place for people from different neighborhoods and different types of cliques would come there. And we really wouldn't have any rivalries and no issues there. So people would just go back, record, their time would be up. We would go in, and that's where like I kind of started having an affection toward performing and doing stuff. But they had a show there one night, a kind of like some type of talent show. And this brother got up there and he had like some long locks and was kind of short, and he starts doing this piece a cappella and he's rhyming, and it sounded like he was, he sounded like he's spitting, like sounded like he's rapping, but then it was sounding so poetical, like on some lines, and I was like, well, what the hell is he doing? You know what I mean? Like it felt dope, but it felt weird because I didn't know like how to label it, how to associate with it. So at the time when he got done, they said he was a performance poet. That's what they was calling spoken word artist at the time. He's a performance poetry. I was like, oh, like that's interesting. Like I never thought of like performing poetry. Like I had gotten in love with seeing it being recited at this time, but I didn't think of it as like the same like preparing for like the type of performance I was preparing for. I knew spoken word artists were also preparing that same way to get on stage. And I saw him and he was doing this repetitious thing, and then he would get back to the poem, and then he was doing, I was like, whoa, like, so I found out that he ended up having some writing classes down the street in this, for this organization that was called Picasso, and it stood for Pittsburgh's Coalition Against Substance Abuse.
That was also in East Liberty? This
was also in East Liberty.
Okay.
And free classes. And we would go up there, like it was just volunteer free. You can go up there, I think it was like every Wednesday or something like that. We would go down there and some local artists would share some works with us, teach us some things, and then they would show us videos dealing with like culture and history and identity and all these things, and then they would ask us to write about it. I happened to go one day, and he ended up, the same guy that I saw, he ended up being one of the instructors one day. And he gave us a writing assignment he taught us about writing in a concrete way and an abstract way. And he gave us some examples, and then he gave each of us a topic. And then our assignment was to write about it in a concrete way and write about it in an abstract way. And my topic was Black people. Right? And
okay.
All right, you know. So I never wrote about Black people like in an abstract way, you know, like, you know, so it was a challenge. It was like, you know, so I started trying, you know, write it in an abstract way, wrote in a concrete way. We had to recite it, you know, in front of everybody after it was over. And I read what I wrote. Now, I don't remember what it said at the time. It was a long time ago. But when I read what I wrote, the abstract side, the class really liked it. You know, and they're like, whoa, like, wait a minute. Read that again? You know, and I was like, really? So I read it again. You know, and they're like, yeah. Like, did you hear what you just wrote? You know, and I was like, yeah. I just wrote it in an abstract way. They're like, yeah, but your delivery was like this. I'm like, you don't even hear yourself. You know, I'm like, no, I don't. You know, because I wasn't even thinking of myself as like a poet or nothing. Like, but I was hooked. Like after like that film, I was kind of hooked. I was still more so rapping, but every once in a while I was writing like little poems here and there and writing stuff like that, whatever. And it really wasn't until the year 2000, I was in the Pittsburgh Job Corps Center here in Pittsburgh. And it was my second time going. I actually went to Westinghouse High School. I dropped out towards my last year of high school at Westinghouse due to a lot of the gang stuff that was going on. I had my life threatened. And some of the guys was going to my school. It was just a lot of stress that it was just hard for me to stay focused in class and everything else. So I dropped out, like really like close to like the year I was supposed to graduate. Yeah. I went to Job Corps here in November of '94, and I was 17 going on 18. And I I had a little focus. I was working. I had 2 jobs at the time. I was doing some things. Before I left Westinghouse High School, that's when I started doing theater. A theater company came to Westinghouse called Arts Production. And it was ran by a gentleman who also passed away last year due to COVID. So rest in peace. So all my mentors passed away last year. It's like very, very interesting. But his name was David Summers. He was a white gentleman that I met who came to Westinghouse one day where it was announced on the PA system that they was going to be holding auditions. And I was in this English class. I had an English teacher named Miss Laswary. And I cut up in this lady's class. I gave this lady hell in her class. But for some reason, she still saw something in me. She would every once in a while give a compliment to me about my reading or my writing and things like that. And she started saying little things like, have you ever thought about like becoming a writer? Like, or have you ever thought about being an author? Or have you ever thought about like, I wasn't even thinking about these things. And then one day she asked me about being an actor because since I was in elementary school, when it got time to read, I might be shy in every other area. But for some reason, when it came to reading out loud, my hand would go up. Yeah. And it was the one area that I wasn't that shy in, like everything else. And I would read it with, you know, with voices. I would read it with different inflections. I was already doing this because I had a library teacher named Miss Eichner, where that's how she read to us. And she was a fabulous teacher. And she used to sit in front of us. She would read these books to us and she'd play all the characters' voices. And all of a sudden we'd just be totally into it. And then when she would get done, she had a stack of books on each table in our classroom. And she would say, you know, we can pick a book from that and we can read anywhere in the library. Like we could sit on top of a table, under a table, on the desk. She had these closets where she took the doors off and you could lay back in the closet, and she'll like walk around, you know, but you have to really be reading, because she's going to walk around and she's going to lean down and she's going to say like, well, tell me about what happened in the story. And she knows all the books. That's the other thing. Like, so I felt like she was like a library god. Like no matter what book you picked up, like she read it. So she actually like knew all these books. So she would come and she was like, well, tell me why he did that. Well, why do you think he would do that? Well, what would you do if that was you? Like, she didn't even know she was giving me like my first acting training, like reading the script. Like she didn't even know like the questions I'm going to have to eventually ask later on when I read stuff.
Right.
She was already training me to read that way, like at a very young age. And so when I began to read to myself, you know, I'm picking up books like I began to play the characters, like I'm doing all the voices. Then when I get in class, you know, not throwing shots at people who might not have read as well as I did, but whenever they would read, if they're reading too slow or if they're reading like they're not interested, like it's killing me, you know. So I'm like,
can I take over, please?
Yes, please call me. Like, and Charlie Brown said, like, I'm going into all the stuff. Like, this is how you say blockhead. Like, you don't say blockhead. It's you blockhead. Like, I would always read like that. So fast forward, I'm in high school. I read everything like this though. Like, if I'm in a civics class or something and it's my turn to read, I'm reading like I'm a teacher or a professor or something. I'm like, and in the 18th century, blah, 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 blah. And people think I'm cutting up, but it's really me enjoying the reading experience. Like I love this, you know, and plus there's some benefits to it. I'm going to remember what I read. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to remember because of how I read it. I'm going to remember I used this voice, this tone here. But so when it came to doing the test on some of this work, it was nothing. You know, like I can remember this. You know, like, oh man, that's when I was using this voice. That's when I used this. No. So she one day asked me, Miss Ezra, I ever think about being an actor? And I was like, no. She, no, you should really think about it because I think you're a natural talent. Da, 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 da. One day, I'm in her class on the PA system. Says at the end of the day, Arts Productions is here. They're holding auditions. And she comes up to me and nudges me with her elbow. You know, I only went because it was giving me an excuse to stay back inside school until the school cleared out, because I had issues sometimes walking home from home with Talarna, with folks seeing where I'm going or the Crips messing with me and everything else. So sometimes I would just hang back and wait till it was kind of clear and then watch. So this was giving me an excuse. So I was just like, I'm gonna do that. You know, so that was the only reason in my mind that I was aware of. So I go, and when I walk in, it's this white guy. I didn't expect to see a white guy who looked like Shaggy. You know, that's how I perceived him. And this white lady, you know, and they're sitting up here at this table and this pitch black, and they got a spotlight on them. And I like walked up and they asked me, what's my name? Have I acted before? And I'm like, no. And he said, okay, well, I'm going to give you what's called a cold read. And I'm going to give you the script. And that's when you get up there, sit on the stage, and let's just see what happens. Cool. I get the script I sit down, I just start reading it. I mean, the script was written for me, you know, like it was about this guy who was sitting on the steps. It was a young black boy sitting in his hood, and all he's doing is just expressing his observations and how it makes him feel. And I could just totally relate to it. So like, as I start reading it, you know, I'm feeling it. So I stand up, I start doing little things. I sit down, you know, I move over here to the point where I was able to start reading some of it and remember it. So I'm like looking up, saying stuff, looking down, looking back up, like boom, 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 boom. I put it down, I sit down. And he was like, so you never done this before? You know, I'm like, no, never. I'm like, no. He was like, man, I have a contract for you right here. I would love for you to join. Arts Production stood for Artists Raising the Consciousness of Humanity. That's what it stood for. And he was very into spiritual, metaphysical things and auras and these things that he would bring up. We were already meditating and doing yoga and rehearsals and stuff I didn't even like understand, but he would get us to like a very emotional or vulnerable spiritual state. And then he would have us talk about things that was going on. So he was bringing people from different neighborhoods, people from Homewood, people from Garfield, people from the Hill, people from Larmer, people who were involved in the gang stuff, or like actual members, or people who was like associated with them or affected by them. And also like other things that was harming, the hood or still today, like people, children of alcoholics, people dealing with drugs, this and that. Yeah. So he would have us come together, and next thing you know, like we're expressing things that we're going through and we're sharing our stuff. And then he would turn some of these stories into these scripts. And he would take these stories, turn them into script. We would rehearse them and everything else. And then we would tour middle schools and high schools performing these shows. And then at the end of the shows, we were all given a microphone. Mm-hmm. Rest in peace, David Summers. He'd give us a microphone, and then we had to go into the audience, and we were all like mini Oprahs. Like we were the ones running the interview and coming up with the questions and everything else. Like we're doing that, at the end of the shows. We did some shows outside of Pittsburgh. We did some in Ohio. We did one in Gettysburg. We did one in Philadelphia. My first role as an actor was a Crip gang member. The irony.
Wow.
I'm going through all of this stuff, and my first role was a Crip gang member in a play called Hitting Home, and which it hit home. And basically, it was just one of these stories of a brother go at this park, and I think he's a Crip, I'm the Crip. Another guy comes, he's a Blood. He has like his little nephew with him or something. He sees me, basically builds up to this altercation. And then the little kid is in between us while we're fighting. Guns go off, the little kid gets caught.
Life.
Right.
That's how it was.
And so these weren't cute plays either. You know what I mean? Like some of these, like when the gunshots go off, like these gunshots, like darn near sounded real as heck, and we have really great young actors with us. At this time, we became so vulnerable and emotional with us. When we got on stage, like it really came out, and some of it was really helping us to heal, some areas and stuff like that. So there's many friends that I see now in Pittsburgh that I met, like through Arch Productions, who didn't stay as actors, but they went on to become speakers or singers or dancers. And like every time we run into each other, it's always like a really deep connection. That's how our rehearsals were. So that's still a part of my ethic.
Is that still going? Or
no, it ended. I was involved with Arch Productions until I want to say like 96. I was in there for about 2 years. And then I was like really entrenched in college and everything by 96. And then I think he kept it going. Then he moved to Atlanta. And I think there was like somebody who was kind of carrying on here, but it wasn't the same, and then I think he tried to keep it going in Atlanta, but it didn't really keep going. And then he got into like real estate and got into like other things.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but this the last few years I hadn't seen him since he had left Pittsburgh like years ago. And so I was searching for him. Facebook comes up, and I just decided to search for him one day. Lo and behold, there's David Summers, and and then when I started updating him on like things I was doing and this and this and that, like he remembered every rehearsal, he remembered like every performance, he remembered like I wasn't sure he was going to remember me. Last time he saw me, I was like 16, 17, 18 years old, and he was still like, oh, Leslie, how can I forget? Like,
right.
You did this, you did that, you did this. Like, of course you're doing this, So that's how I really got into like the arts and stuff like that. But like I've been doing it for some time.
Yeah. Who's your favorite poet, if you have one? If you can name maybe a favorite one or two.
I mean, probably so many Black folks say it, but it's true for me. I mean, it's Maya Angelou, for one, more so because, and that's not even to say I always like all her poetry. That's not to say I like all her presentation of her stuff, but when she was, before I even seen the brother at the Kingsley Center, she was like the first one like I heard like reading poetry with like so much passion with each word. And like I had like I was really into, as a youngster, I was really into speakers. So I was like really into like I was into Martin Luther King Jr., not always because of the civil rights, and I have a like I'm really looking at the speech like, wait a minute, like did you hear how he said this, and then he went to this, then he slowed down, then he sped up, then he gave all these shout outs, then after he gives the shout outs, then he said this, and then he like I'm looking at it like that. I used to look at speakers as spitters, like they all different, just like different MCs, different singers, like they have those different styles. So I'm like, I'm really into it because of that. And I loved Martin because it just seemed like each word was so significant. Like nothing was insignificant in that speech, no matter what he was talking about, you know, like nothing felt higher or lower to me in his speech, you know. And so it was like, when I heard Maya, like, I just felt like, I heard her on a tape that I found at the library. I read one of her poems in a Black poet anthology that I found at a library in Homewood. And then they had this tape that had like a tape of poets reading their works. And I put it in, and I mean, this tape had like Langston Hughes and like other people like reading their works. And it had Maya Angelou on it. And I couldn't stop replaying it. You know, like I just kept playing it, like, man, listen to her voice. That is crazy. You know, like, and so when I was starting to write poetry at first, like I really was reciting all my poetry, trying to sound like Maya Angelou. You know what I mean? Like all my poetry at first was like, even when I first started getting on the spoken word scene, and this is just something I just realized in hindsight, but even when I first started getting on the scene, it probably was still highly influenced like by the structure of her poetry, how she held words and how she makes all these declaring statements and then throws some abstract or concrete that makes a big statement. And you know, like that's a big influence. So she probably is still my favorite poet. And also a poet named Jalaluddin Rumi, or Rumi, R-U-M-I, Rumi. Rumi is he is a Sufi poet. And his poetry is just rich. It's just beautiful. It's supposed to be, the story is supposed to be that he was a seeker after some knowledge, and he met a teacher, and that him and the teacher got like really, really close, almost like a really intimate, close connection. And then the teacher left him one day, like just left. And he began to write, you know, things kind of expressing how he felt as a result of the teacher leaving his life. But as he began to keep writing, he also began to write what the teacher taught him, and he's feeling. So a lot of it was supposed to be what he calls the beloved. But being that he's a Sufi poet in an Islamic tradition. So a lot of his poetry would be kind of controversial to some people, because sometimes like he will be using Islamic terms and symbology, but sometimes it will be like, but also like using like wine as symbology, or using getting drunk off of love is symbology, which as being in the Islamic world would seem kind of fun. Like, wait, why would you be using that as symbology? Because that's not something that we use. But he would use that as a form of expressing himself. But the poetry he would come out with, where he said he had kind of a process of writing his poetry, where like he would just turn and whirl and till he felt like he was in some type of trance as he's writing. And so there's a whole community called the Whirling Dervishes. You know, if you like look it up, that is supposed to be kind of reenacting what Rumi was doing when he was coming up with some of these gorgeous works, and you just gotta take the time to read it. You'll see what
I
I mean,
will.
and it will
That
make
sounds
sense.
interesting.
Then you'll be like, oh, okay. I
It
can see
sounds
that.
interesting. It sounds like something that'll pull me in, and then I'll be learning from it as well. So
absolutely,
that's definitely. But to go back real quick on Maya Angelou, she definitely is, one of the greatest. But what I appreciate more about her work is when I learned how she went mute for a few years. She just didn't talk. And then I don't know, that's so interesting to me that she, had the situation that happened. She went mute,
right.
And then boom, all of this stuff came out of her. So definitely was one of my favorites as well. And I love Nikki Giovanni too.
Oh yeah. Nikki Giovanni, I would probably say she was that. If there was like a first, what's the woke person that like I read that work or something, it probably was Nikki Giovanni, like no doubt. Like the first one where I was reading, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, like even just the things she was talking about. I mean, it darn read like raps, like red light stuff. I mean, you could see like the inspiration she probably had on people later on. But yeah, Nikki Giovanni's definitely highly up there. Definitely. That was probably, she was the first poet my mother read to me, was Nikki Giovanni.
Yeah, she's good. She's definitely good. I'll be watching all of her stuff on YouTube, and I just I like how it's okay for her to just read off of the book. Cause I know I try to practice memorizing things so I can get up there and just like spit it out. But once I get nervous, I don't care how many times I practice it at home and I know every single word. Once I get nervous or I look at a certain person or something like that, I'll trip over a word and it kind of like, I'll just draw a blank. So it's a safety net, but I do have to get away from that.
When you said that because I've heard it often too, like, oh, if I tell people I'm nervous, if I'm telling people like, yo, before I get up there, I am nervous as heck. Like it's still the unknown. No matter how long I have done it, it's still the unknown. Like each time I jump in it, like I don't know what's about to happen. It's the same feeling I get when I do theater. It's the same feeling when I was doing hip hop shows. Like I don't know what's about to happen, and that's kind of the adrenaline rush that I began to have to see like how quickly I can get ahead of my fear. Like how quickly can I get ahead of my nervousness? Like here it comes. Like nope, I'm gonna get ahead of it. Nope, like I'm coming in first, and that's and once I feel that like I'm ahead of it now, then it's curtains, from that point on, whether I win or lose, I'm going to feel great that I got ahead of that. I'll always win. You know what I'm saying? Like anytime I get done, if I ain't win the slam, but I won, like once again, you know what I mean? I got ahead of this and I was able to do this for 3, 4, 5 minutes. That's crazy. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Where there's some people right now who still like, ain't no way in hell. Like I'm getting in front of people and I'm doing this. But I've also learned to kind of like, how can I say, like the go within, go without poem, right? When there was an event that was held at a spot that was called Quiet Storm that used to be up in Garfield, actually. And it was another performance venue. Then like later on, they kind of turned it into like a veggie restaurant or something, then it closed down. But before that, it was like another performance venue that was open a little bit after the Shadow Lounge had opened as well. So sometimes we would go to the Shadow Lounge or we would go up to the street to Quiet Storm. Sometimes they did shows together there. And, and real quick, it also, there was this, there were so many venues. There was a lot of venues to practice. You know what I'm saying? Like, so like when people are saying like, some of the things, there was a lot of opportunities for us to practice these things, like, so for instance, like I said, we had the Kingsley Center. So we're in there for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, and then we're going home hours and hours, and we don't got no contract, we ain't signed, we ain't got no money, we just got the love and joy and passion of this stuff, and we're going in for hours and hours and hours. So by the time I done got on this microphone at the Shadow Lounge or any other place before that, I have already been like kind of going through that process to kind of jump ahead of this nervousness that I still get, but I just be trying to have faith that I'm gonna get ahead of. So I had the Shadow Lounge, I had Plastorm, I had the Kingsley Center, I had PCTV 21 used to let us come over, and we used to record our own shows over there in 94. So there was like 3 or 4, 5 rap cliques of us. We would go over there.
Is that North Side, right?
Yes, on the North Side. Yes. We would go over there, and they gave us an opportunity to start producing our own little hip hop cypher shows and stuff like that. So like, it was a crazy time, like on the streets and crime, but it was also like there was so much. As much as there was young folks who was joining gangs and stuff like that, and being influenced, that there was just as many folks who was starting to get into creativity, like starting to get into poetry, starting to get into drawing or painting. Or I had many friends like that who just didn't get the same media attention as those who were being violent. I had many friends I went to elementary school, middle school with, where we all was nerds and writing little short stories and writing poems and drawing little pictures and, doing graffiti or rapping, or we was all doing that like for years. And the Kingsley Center and later on the Shadow Lounge and other places kind of gave us a place to start, creating that type. So the Shadow Lounge wasn't even always a performance venue. Sometimes it would just be open throughout the day in its early days.
I missed the Shadow Lounge.
Yeah, so I could just stop in there, shout out to Justin Strong and DJ SMI. When I would go in there, like for hours, I could be in there by myself, and I can really learn the space. I can learn like, oh, okay, this is the acoustics. Oh, maybe I can stand right here. Okay, maybe I can stand here on the stage. So that's still that's another way I prepare for slams. You go to the venue, you chill, you walk around, sit on the step, you chat with the DJ, you chat with the door person, you chat with the bartenders, you chat with the cook, you sitting outside, you chat with folks, like boom, boom, and then you feel it, like you get up there and you don't look like this stranger hitting the stage, like all these folks done chatted with you. You know what I'm saying? All these folks done felt your vibe. All these like, oh damn, there you go. There go homeboy who just bought me a drink. Where to go homeboy I was just rapping with, boom, boom. Now he's about to be on stage. And it makes it that's also another nervousness. I done met some strangers. Now they about to watch me up on stage. It's another challenge, but I think about those challenges, what I'm saying? Like before I go, like, all right, like what type of challenge do I want today? Like for myself.
You dropping off a lot of tips for me. I wish I would have been able to take advantage of all of that back in the day too, but I was kind of like hiding my writing anyway. And then I was busy just like doing other things, like hanging in bars and stuff. I wasn't really like, I've been to the Kingsley Center before, but I didn't get involved in those ways and stuff like that. Like I didn't even realize there was that many different opportunities out there to practice either. I didn't really into it as much. So I wish there was, is there stuff like that now, like for the younger generation and even for me, because I definitely always want to practice my craft. And I do want to start things with teenagers, especially young ladies. But it's not easy to get them to get involved with what I want them to do,
Yeah. I mean, there's some organizations out there. I know. I don't know why the name is not in my head right now, but the ones who do the poetry slams, I think still maybe over at Capri. I think they're still doing them over there or somewhere else. Sometimes they have writing workshops. Sometimes like even like the same day of the slams, like before the slam is starting, or if they have like a feature artist that day, like you can sit down with the feature artist and get some tips and stuff like that before the slam. So I think that's a cool opportunity. A lot of times that's free or kind of cheap for that. But it's as far as like what I kind of experienced during that time, and like I'm not sure. I'm not sure if those type of things like consistently. I know that like Dance Alloy up the street in East Liberty. They had like a lot of events going on for youth to come, and like workshops and dance workshops and writing workshops.
Yeah.
But I probably have to search and look and see specifically like what's going on around this time. But the chatter around that though was definitely more, I feel like, when I was younger than what I hear today. So I don't know if the same awareness of those type of organizations and stuff, or the same type of significance is put on those today as it was like kind of during the 90s. So I'm pretty sure there's a lot that's around. It's just I just don't feel like the conversation is as high as it should to be around them, because I should be aware. You know what I'm saying? Like I should be aware, you know what I mean? And the only time that I'm aware of some that goes on, but I've started my own, I had a youth poetry slam that was going on downtown for like 2 years.
When was this?
This was back in, what was that, like 2016 or something like that, or 2015. And I did that for like 2 years down there. And I mean, I would have ages from 5 up to like 16.
Oh, wow.
Coming down and singing, doing poetry. But we were also, it was for a charity. I had a friend that had lost a close friend. And she was like trying to raise money and bring awareness to some of the things he was into. And he was into the arts and youth and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, I'll start a youth slam, and we'll raise some money. So all the money would go to that charity or organization, but we would have it packed, and people will come down. But I think there's been other like youth poetry slams and stuff that's been going on, but it's probably just getting involved more into the culture of it and more aware of it. Or being a creator of what you don't see. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and that's where I'm headed. That's what I would love to do. It's just a matter of like getting the kids involved. They want something. And they like, they don't want to just come to the workshop and practice their craft and learn. They're like, what else are we doing with this? What else is going on? So it's been a challenge. It's been a challenge. I've had a few events with teens, but I would like to make it a bigger deal.
Yeah,
because it's therapeutic. It's therapeutic.
It is. And sometimes a good start would be, like to visit other organizations that are already kind of doing that, like to kind of give you an idea, like how you may want to add your own spice or your flavor, or how you would create what you feel like you don't see. Like, or just to start practicing, what I'm saying? Like, maybe like, you go as a feature, to, hey, we got a writer here today. We got to put, so you can get comfortable speaking about yourself like that. Like you'll like, I was just here speaking. I was just here teaching. I was just here, boom, boom. And you'll start figuring out ways to make it attractive to, the folks that you want to work with. So you might have to first like kind of go around and fill it out first, and you might even begin to develop a following. Like, you might leave and the kids really liked you, or the parents really liked you. You get some numbers, like, hey, now I'm about to start my own thing. Like, come check Ray's flavor out. Next thing you know, you then got 4 students that you already did met, from other stuff.
Yep. And then you'll come and help out with the workshops and stuff too, right?
Of course.
I need you up right now.
of course. I'd love to do it.
Because one of your titles is teacher.
Yes.
Correct. So
yeah.
What are you doing with teaching? How do you?
So I let me see, like around like 2002 or 2003, there was a Black male book club that was going on at the Shadow Line, and they would sit outside, like a little semicircle outside the lounge, and they would read a book and discuss it and whatnot. And I had saw them doing it like a few weeks, but I was always out and about. I was doing stuff, so I would see them like, hey, peace, one day I'm gonna stop by. And then this one night, this happened. I think I was supposed to perform one night. It got canceled, or it got like held back or something. So I had some time. I saw them outside, so I was like, hey, so I sat down, and they were discussing male behavior, Black male behavior, as it relates to like a lack of like literacy skills and something like that. And so they're reading this book that's discussing it. I had came like right kind of in the middle of it, so I was just listening. But when they started, like when the guy who was moderating it, when he started asking questions, I started leaning in and answering the question here and answering the question there. So when it was over, he was like, "Hey, like, have you ever worked, like with children, like teaching children, like, have you ever did this, did that?" And I was like, "Well, I volunteered. I had some volunteer experience at this point. There was an organization called Urban Youth in Action. And I used to do things like going in schools and speaking and doing little rap shows and little poetry things and stuff like that. During that time, there was for Operation Better Block in Homewood, and I would do things for them in some schools. And there was the Gang Peace Council of Western Pennsylvania. And they were trying to, get gang truce and things like that during that time. So I was a youth advocate for all of that. So I would go to the big North Side meetings they would have and big stuff like that. And I'd be like one of the young bucks, like, we need to stop killing each other. Like one of them guys. But he told me about an organization that was called Grown with Trust Incorporated, and it was located on a hill. And he said it was a male literacy program, and that it was started by a guy named Harry Williamson. It was his name. And he said that, basically it's like children who are in elementary school between the ages of 6 and 12, whose teachers are either scared to deal with, cutting up, like they just cut up, and they found that there was a correlation between their behavior and their literacy. These are people who they got these literacy issues, and when it's time to read, when it's time to do this, they start cutting up, they start fighting, they start doing all types of stuff. If they get embarrassed, if they, they get really violent, and all these other type of things, or not even violent, sometimes they just shut down, or they get this and this and that. So they would get a choice sometimes. Well, they were getting suspended a lot, like they're just getting suspended. So they were the school, this was like Aleo Wow and Van and a couple other schools on the hill. They were trying to find like alternatives, like to some of these children getting always kicked out or just getting suspended. So we were supposed to be an alternative that, like, instead of getting suspended, and this and that, like they'll come with us.
That's my grandson.
All right. They'll come with us, but we're just giving them a different type of educating them. So I was getting into the arts. I'm using the arts. I'm using spoken word. I'm using reading. I'm still kind of young to them. So like I still know their hip hop of the day. I still know their stuff of the day. I know my writings of the day. I'm bringing that in. I'm bringing friends up, from their neighborhood. I've lived on the hill. My family's from the hill. So I know all the streets. I know all the slang. So I'm saying all of these things. They'll bring up their dad, their mom, they're my cousin, they're my friend, all of these things. But then I will present all the education I got. I present all the experiences I got. I'll show them all of these things and be like, look, like this is homie Neps, like from the hill, who went to college, who did this, who did this, who did this, that's you too. Like I am you. Like please don't look at me like I fell from here. Like no, I rose up from here. Like so, and I'm still got somewhere to go, but I can help you get a little bit further. The problem with some of them was like, if I called them to the board and I asked them to write something, spell something. Maybe they spell it incorrectly. Somebody in the class laughed. I mean, these guys would start banging their head against the blackboard, like getting mad, like black out, or start this and that. So we're taking, and then they also had, some issues going on at home sometimes, or their environment and things like that. That was a huge contributing factor as well. And some teachers were flat out scared of some of these kids. And really just scared of their attitude. Like some of these kids, they never hit a teacher, but they were just like, get off of me, get away from me.
Yeah.
Well, I don't care, call my mom, and some of them, they just be like, just get out. I mean, we used to go and they would just have them just sitting in the hallway, nobody dealing with them, so we would get them, take them up, encourage them, teach them, talk to them different ways. It was challenging. I would have like 2 or 3 social workers with me. who will be able, like, if it got beyond what I was able to handle, like, then they would deal with them or talk with them or deal with their skills. I did that for about 2 years. It was a nonprofit organization, and we lost some funding in 2005, and then it just became me just trying to raise money, just trying to find money to keep the organization alive. It didn't happen, so then it became defunct. But I had to teach them bug, like, at this time. Like, I just, so my daughter came into my world in 2005, my daughter Zori. And when she was around 3 or 2, when she was around 2, we started thinking of, childcare and things like that. We found a home place for her to be, which worked out beautiful. But then that person ended up getting back into another field. So then she shut her home care down. So then, like, we had to really start searching for a place to take my daughter. So I'm taking her to different places. I'm, like, going to these different child care centers, and I'm not liking what I'm seeing, to be honest. Like, I'm going to certain places, I'm hearing them yelling, I'm hearing teachers hollering, I'm hearing teachers, like, just, grabbing the kids, or just, acting like these kids are theirs at the crib. Like, I'm not liking it. So I'm like, basically, I just stayed in that field. I mean, I worked in some other fields. I worked in some customer service, some banking, but I always kind of returned back to work with the children because that has become my other passion. I totally enjoy working with children. I totally love watching a child go from to becoming, like, the smartest thing in the world after somebody first saw this child's behavior and was like, that child is going to just be just this, there's going to be a cut up, this and this. And I always want to prove that child, if that child believes that, I want to prove that child wrong. And if they parents or if the communities believe in that, I'm going to prove that community or at school wrong. So by the time that child is with me after a year, you're going to see, like, something so amazing. They're going to know about the arts, they're going to know themselves, they're going to know their gross motor, the fine motor, they're going to know culture, they're going to know the continents, they're going to be saying stuff that you're going to be like, what is going on?
Parents won't even know that they had it in them.
No.
It's the energy that you pour into them.
Yes, and I mean, it's because my love is authentic, it's passionate. I'm praying for them, I'm thinking about them all the time. I'm just, one of the first experiences I had was a guy that really had me infused with this feeling. I worked at UPrep some years ago. I was working up there through the Hill House Association. We had an after-school program called the Zone program, and I had a guy named, I'll call him K. I had a guy named K who was in my room. He was like 12. This dude was like Doughboy of Boys in the Hood, like the young Ice Cube character. And, like, when I first met him, I was going around the class asking their names for them to tell me a hobby of theirs. When I got to him, I said, okay, what's your name? He said, K. I said, what's your hobby? He was like, fighting. And I'm like, word? Okay. The other kids are laughing. He gets really mad. Tells him to shut the F up. Right? And I'm like, whoa. You can be mad. I just don't want you cousins in the room. You can be mad. I just don't want you cousins in the room. He's like, all right, whatever. He's giving me a lot of attitude. Then I said, well, why you like fighting? He said, because I just do. Why? He said, because my dad told me if anybody hit me or something like that, you hit them back or fight or something, he said. And he's like, so I'm fighting and I'm good at it. So I like it. And I was like, okay. And everybody was laughing. So he gets really mad. And he stands up, and he looks at these other children. He's like, blah, blah, blah. And you keep saying this, and then if you say this, I'll sock you right now. Blah, 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 blah. And he's screaming, he's hollering, he's throwing his voice. His voice is going up, his voice is going down. He's saying this, and then he was done. And then he, like, sat down. And I just sat on my desk. And I was like,
performance.
Hey, homie. He's like, what? And they're laughing. I was like, what? Y'all laughing? Let me tell you what K just did. Okay, first of all, you stood up. Your feet was like planted, homie. Like, your feet was like, boom.
It was
boom.
Firm. And
like, you stood with, like, authority, yo. Like, woo! you know, like that, your presence. Here, let me write that on the board. Your presence, homie, is crazy, yo. I was like, then your voice was like, boom, like it was all over the room, yo. That's from right there. So you like your projection, homie? Your projection?
Yeah.
You project, like, you know, like a movie projector, like it projects the image. Like that's how your voice was. Your voice was like, oh. Like I was like, woo. I was like, then your voice was like up, it was down, then it was like this, then it stopped, then it's like, then I was like, listen, there are people who is going to school right now, like a couple blocks away from here.
Yeah.
That they gotta pay buku to do what you just did. You know what I mean? It's like, I was like, man, that was awesome, bro. Man, I was like, then it was just you talking, right? Like it was just you for like 2 minutes. That's called a monologue.
Yeah.
That's a monologue. Let me write this down. If I wrote that down and we studied that, that'd be one of the most powerful monologues going on right now. Denzel will rock that monologue that you just did right now.
Yeah.
Y'all know Denzel Washington? Like, yeah, one of his first plays he did was written by August Wilson, who lives right down the street, y'all.
Wow.
Right down the street from this school. You know what I mean? Who got his diploma at the Carnegie Library on the Hill District, right up the street from here, y'all. Like with Kenny, that's his name. That's where you at. You know what I'm saying? It's like you got all this. Dog. I worked with him. He first gave me so much attitude for weeks, but he never forget that day. He was like, "Yo, you really think?" Like he would come to me, like, "You really think like I got something?"
Doing
like,
something different, yeah.
But I noticed every time he was cutting up, every time he would get mad in my class, every time it was like when it was time for him to read. Like anytime it was time for him to read, he would start cutting up. I finally got this boy to admit he couldn't read like the whole time. You know, he's getting through all these grades, can't read, and it messes him up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's like embarrassed. You know what I mean? He's feeling all dumb about himself. He's feeling all, I'm like, who told you you can't read? You know, I asked him, could you read? No. Who told you that? I just can't. But who told you that? You know, and he was like, nobody. I was like, right. Nobody told you you can't read. You can read. Look, dog, I ain't gonna tell nobody. We can meet up here every 5 minutes, 10 minutes. We'll work on some sentences, we'll work on a monologue, we'll work on rhymes, we'll work on whatever. You're gonna be reading. It's gonna be crazy. I worked with him for like 4 or 5 months. He became my protector in my room. You know what I mean? Like, so if somebody was being disrespectful to me in my room or whatever, you know, now he's like, what?
Shut him down.
Like, straight up, like, I'll sock you. You know, I'm like, whoa. Like, I'm happy you on my side. You know what I mean? Like, like, I'm glad you're on my side with it now. Like, okay, that's what's up. I still don't want you socking cats. You know what I mean? But thank you. You know what I mean? But his attitude began to change. His behavior began to change. And then I was done with that program. The Hill House shut down. So our program shut down. The Hill House shut down. I'm in 2000. And when they began to shut down, I was like 2014, I think, or 12. So then I got laid off from there. And then I didn't see Kenny for like 2 or 3 years after that. I ran into him on a bus on the Hill District one day, like going on. And he was in school. He was chill. You know, he's relaxed. Like, you know, I'm talking with him. I couldn't believe this was little dudes ready to sock me. You know what I mean? Like, you know, and that feeling was just like, see, that's why I be believing the way I be believing. You know what I mean? I be seeing things. You know, I be seeing like with, you know, one, I always just remember as a child. You know what I'm saying? It's a child. Like that child only went around the sun 4 times. Child went around the sun 5 times. They ain't even seen a worm yet. You know what I'm saying? They ain't
but
even,
it's good you was there at that moment, at that time, to let him vent, to let him
absolutely.
do that,
and
to
that's
introduce
important.
him to those, you know, other ways to deal with his anger or his embarrassment. So
absolutely, because for real, I mean, had, you know, some of the situations I grew up in a home with a lot of domestic violence. I grew up in a home with some drug use going on in my home and drug selling in my home. I grew up in an environment where I literally saw my friends' mothers turn into crackheads, turn into, when a lot of crack began to hit Homewood and some of the areas, like some of my best friends' moms, like, I saw those changes and stuff like that. And so I sometimes feel like, I got a similar background where, like, had it not been for that one poem, or that one interest in science class, or that one teacher who said something, or, that one I heard, I could have easily made the same choice. I have easily been like, what, I'm picking up the gun. Thank goodness somebody was like, nah, they're gonna pick up a book. Thank you. Thank goodness somebody, said to me, like, hey, like, there's more to you than just Pittsburgh. Like, you can be here. You can be here. There's more to you, your ancestry, than just slavery. Like, we did this and we did that and we did this. So thank goodness they were in my ears when I was a little younger, but I could have easily made like the same choice, easily been on the same road, So I think I always still see myself, like in the folks that I work with. Like, I don't see like, or worse or better. Like, I don't see like, they're lower than me, or like they're a little human.
You relate, and they feel that energy, they know you care. That's what makes it easier for them to gravitate towards you in that way.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you this real quick, if you could, before we end this conversation, can you bless us with something? I know you prepared.
Well, since you did bring a go within, go without, do you mind if I share that?
Oh, that's one of my favorites. That's probably why I like you so much.
So I'll share that. And real quick, what I was going to say real quick before I even share real quick.
Okay.
When I was at this spot called Quiet Storm, I had a friend who was running an event there. And I had just came there, like, I came to the event kind of late. It was already packed. He called me to the mic. He like just put me on the spot. Like, oh, my homie Ezra's in the building. Oh, get on the mic. Everybody give it up for him. I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, I had nothing prepared. I just went up there. And when I came in, it was like some drummer who was like drumming something kind of fast. And I remember feeling like, it would have been nice, like, if I had came a little early, I would have set something up with the drummer or something like that or whatnot, but I ain't had no time for that. So when I got up to the mic, I just wanted to I was really nervous. I didn't know what I was going to do. And actually what I did is I had the piece go within, go without in my mind, but I didn't have no repeat. Like, I didn't have no go within, you will go with. It was just go within, go without. No, go within, go without. Like, that's all it was. But when I got on the mic and I actually what happened is I got on, I said, if you don't go with it, you will go without. If you don't go with it, I just began to kind of make it up, like, on the spot. When I began to kind of repeat it, trying to figure out how I'm going to spit it, how I'm going to share it, or even trying to remember some words, like, I was just repeating it. But when I began to repeat it kind of like in a little rhythm, the audience just jumped on it. They thought like that's what I had planned. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have that plan. You know what I mean? Like, and so I just ran with it. I just kept doing it. And then I remembered the word and I jumped into the piece. And then I was like, oh, so instead of just saying it once, I'm just going to keep repeating it. You know what I mean? And I began to just use it. So sometimes I remember, like, it's how you use your nervousness. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like you got to make your nervousness some like creativity, some creative mush that you're about to use. You know what I mean? Like, well, how I'm going to use this nervousness where the audience don't even know. You know what I mean? They don't even know. Like, they thought I came like with that. I was just trying to figure it out. You know what I mean? And Dave was like, oh. And I was like, oh, they like that. All right, that works. Look at that. See, I've been going through bullshit, man, due to foolish plans, useless chance. Question self, why you do this, man? But chasing love outside of myself, hiding myself, lying myself, off an inside crying myself, maybe on support steps, smoking black mouths. When I'm out in public, man, I'm often acting proud. Don't want to let no people know I'm going through some ish, even though I know they know what makes me feel I'm losing it. I get a lot of conversations through false imitation of people caring for a brother through false demonstration of handshakes and hugs and fear for dialogue. They see me going through some stuff, but never try it all to extend some help, extend some health, extend some wealth. What they do is extend some wealth. On my already wounded heart, taking me for granted often I'm soon to part from this world of fake friends and smiles and fake tears and frowns, and joyfully celebrate the day that I found the true friend inside that you can't deny. Trust my heart while using my mind. If you don't go within, you will go without. If you don't go within, you will go without. If you don't go within, you will go without. You will go without. You will go without. If you don't go within, you will go without. If you don't go within, you will go without. If you don't go within, you will go without. You will go without. You will go without. See, this agony is nagging me and it's begging me to change, rearrange my pattern so I can maintain through the pain of my mind. Cause these times are kind of crazy. Amaze me how the inner thoughts make shots in physical form. A lyric is born in order to warm my people what's going across their hearts. Listen, I dedicate my art to all of those who feel like they're living their lives inside some closet doors with the keys lost and they have no idea where to look. It's inside themselves, but there's a fear to look. So I'ma keep on writing and sharing my dreams. And there's a new scene and there's a new means of feeling completion. Depletion is gone. That's an option. And ain't no stopping this rocking, unlocking the chains of self-destruction. Ain't no fussing, discussing solutions, illusions eliminated. Hey, yo, I'm glad we made it. Even though we doubted and shouted tears for fears, my peers, keep your heads up high. Never keep it low. Hey, yo, it's your brother Ezra. I'm here to let you know if you don't go within, you will go without. If you don't go within, you will go without. If you don't go within, you will go without. You will go without. You will go without. And once you do go within, you realize how much you can do without. Thank you.
I love that. Like I love that. I mean, I love that. Stands out to me when I think of you and the pieces that I've seen you perform. That one is the one that stands out the most to me.
Word. Yeah. Appreciate it. Thank you.
You're just all around dope anyway. So
thank you.
You got anything coming up?
Well, actually, I was just invited. I wish I had all the details. I'm just jumping back into the performance game. So there is something that will be going on August 23rd that I will be performing in. So it's supposed to be all these types of folks there. I think the Bill Henry Band and all of these other folks are supposed to be there. I just got invited to it by my boss who has some connection to this thing. But once I get more information about that, I'll share it with you and you can post it on your page. And
okay.
Check it out.
Yeah, so I can come out and support.
Word, I appreciate that.
Definitely.
In the building.
Definitely.
Gotta hear you on the mic again too.
Yeah, I'm going to be at home practicing a little bit so I don't be nervous. I know when we met the last poets, when we were at dinner, that was, oh man. And it caught me out and I got nervous and I drew a blank and I couldn't say anything. And I was sitting here like, oh my God, I'm sitting here at the table with the left. I can't speak. Like that was horrible, but I still enjoyed being in their presence. And then I performed the next day, but
yeah, that was an amazing experience.
It was amazing.
That was an amazing, but that was I'm surprised I didn't even bring up the Last Poets. I'm sorry. That's another crew that I probably should have brought up as far as influence is the Last Poets. My dad introduced them to me, and that's probably one of the few things I can give props to my dad for. He did introduce Last Poets to me. He heard some of the rap I was listening to, and he was like, "Oh shoot, Last Poets been talking about that." Right. I was like, "Yeah." And he put some Last Poets on, and I was like, "Oh, wait a minute, we thinking we on to something new." No, these cats been out here. Spit, so that was amazing. Sitting at the table, and then I got to spit for them. That's bananas.
Yeah, you did. Everybody did, but me.
Bananas.
My mind literally went blank. I was like, I don't know what to say. That's what I'm talking about. Like, but I like how you said you got to get in front of it. Get in front of your nerves and
make sure it puts you in the seat of creator instead of reactor.
Yes. Yes, I like that. I want to take that and run with it.
No doubt.
Yeah. All right, I appreciate your time. Honestly, you're one of my favorite people out here doing this, so I really, truly appreciate your time.
Oh, you're welcome. I appreciate the invite. Thank you.
Yes. Love.
Yep, no doubt. Peace.